Hello and welcome to the only video on the internet. I hear that you've been going to art therapy recently. We'd love to see it. Congratulations! But you may be wondering, but I couldn't help but wonder, how does my art therapist do it? I mean, they're able to make you think of things that you've never really thought of before and feel feelings that you didn't know were inside. Well, they have a secret trick. So today I'm going to demystify what they're doing. It's with this little thing called the ETC. Not etc. No. I'm talking about the Expressive Therapies Continuum. And today I'm going to show you with my handy dandy art caddy. As I said, the ETC stands for Expressive Therapies Continuum, which is a model made by the girls Sandra Kagin and Lusebrink in 1978. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time. They made this model to better understand how a person interacts with art materials and engages in varying levels of creativity that can be used to assess development, plan treatment goals, and to move a person towards self-actualization and mental and emotional wellness. According to Lusebrink, each level of the ETC is a continuum between two opposite poles, whereby the extreme end of each pole represents variations as an indication of possible psychopathology found in the visual expression on that level. There are 7 levels of the ETC, but no single level is higher or more important than another. Each of the higher levels of the ETC incorporate the characteristics of the lower levels, moving from simple to more complex levels of information processing, which parallel cognitive developmental stages. Creativity can exist on any one of the levels and may even be a synthesis of all the levels. Even though in Lusebrink's and Sandra Kagin's traditional model, the creative level is situated at the top of the diagram, it's not necessarily the goal of art therapy. The goal is client wellness, which is why I have developed my own way of thinking about the ETC, my art caddy. It's just great, yeah? The levels are as follows: kinesthetic, sensory, perceptual, affective, cognitive, and symbolic. The 7th level, creativity, is the vehicle through which an individual can move through multiple levels or experience 2 or more levels at the same time. The vehicle. As you can see, my art caddy spins and has 6 slots for materials. I like to keep it fully stocked so I can switch from one level to the next whenever I want to. Yeah, I'm creative like that. Let's dive into each level, starting with the kinesthetic level. According to Lusebrink, the kinesthetic level consists of simple motor expressions with art media and their corresponding visual manifestations of energy. One experiences the kinesthetic level when they release energy and express themselves through bodily action and movement, like squishing, squashing, beating, ripping, pulling, poking, rolling, and smashing materials. As you can probably tell, this level focuses more on the process rather than the product. Materials likely to facilitate kinesthetic expression include any that involve motor actions and gestures, such as ripping paper, hammering nails, using charcoal, especially if drawing on a large sheet of drawing paper where you can move and or clay, which you can squish and squash and rip, oh my gosh. Additionally, if a person shows a disregard for boundaries and limits, including destroying or frantically throwing the materials, the person is only experiencing kinesthetically. When the person has more bodily awareness and control of their movements, where they can move rhythmically and methodically, they are better able to connect with the other levels of the ETC. The motor movements of the kinesthetic level can also evoke emotions, leading one to the affective level, or if the person's able to intentionally make and recognize lines and shapes, they may be able to move to the perceptual level. Now, sensory level. Guys, I was just having a sensory experience, an unpleasant sensory experience. Like, my hair was just so hot, so I effectively put it up in some perceptual designs. Right. Guys, it's just not easy being this magic. The sensory level includes expressions that focus on sensory exploration, especially the tactile or the haptic senses, but also including any sensations experienced while interacting with media or form. The engagement of the senses when interacting with materials, surfaces, and textures can allow a person to ground or center themselves, to focus on their bodily sensations in their environment. An extreme sensory experience is one that is characterized by extreme sensory sensitivity or is overly absorbed. An integration of the sensory and kinesthetic levels may look like ripping tissue paper and listening to the sounds that it makes. Relevant materials that can facilitate sensory expression include scented markers, tissue paper, fluffy feathers, modeling clay, oil pastels, chalk pastels, finger paints, pipe cleaners, and colourful tape. So any activity that allows for slower, more intentional movements is likely to facilitate a sensory experience. Lastly, sensory experiences often evoke feelings of pleasure, disgust, or other emotions, which can enable a person to move to the affective level. Perceptual. The perceptual level focuses on the formal qualities of an expression, the forms and their differentiation. The formal elements, i.e. what makes an artwork look like what it does, include aspects such as line, shape, and space, and these elements aesthetically differentiate forms from one another. When a person emphasizes lines, boundaries, or repetitive shapes, they are expressing on the perceptual level. An overly perceptual expression, such as one with excessive detailing or lack thereof, does not readily express emotion and keeps a person fixated on what the marks of an artwork look like. However, when paired with affect, affect inspires forms, and forms give containment for and bring order to affect. This is especially evident in mandalas, which have been shown to help reduce anxiety. An art therapist can facilitate a perceptual expression by providing any materials that have potential for creating forms and differentiating figure-ground relationships, such as graphite pencils, Sharpie markers, rulers, and other tools. These allow greater opportunity to emphasize the formal elements. On to the affective level. The affective level of the ETC involves the expression and release of emotions that occurs when interacting with media. Art therapists can encourage affective expression by providing colorful and fluid mediums, such as watercolors, dyed shaving cream, or marble paints. Affect can be expressed not only through color choice and vibrancy, but also through line quality and abstraction, such as the presence of jagged or wavy lines. Fluid and colorful media, such as watercolors and clay, can promote affective expression and aid in regression and emotional processing. Indiscriminate color mixing or using a color that does not match the subject matter are some variations of the affective level, possibly indicating psychopathology or at least a disconnect. Some mediums that can bridge an expression between the affective and perceptual levels include colorful markers, crayons, and colored pencils, which are resistive yet evoke emotion in their color. Alright, now let's be serious. It's the cognitive level. According to Lusebrink, the cognitive level is characterized by the cognitive integration of forms and lines leading to concept formation, categorization, problem solving, spatial differentiation and integration, word inclusion, differentiation of meaning of objective images and abstractions, such as the heart, which is a universal understanding of a particular shape. The art on this level has a logical, sequential understanding or involves sequential steps to complete. On this level, forms and lines integrate and become concepts. However, the concepts do not have a subjective personal meaning for the artist. The forms are named and relate to one another in a logical manner, launching off from the perceptual level's focus on the formal elements. Variations of expressions on the cognitive level include disintegration of surface and spatial structure, illogical relations between forms, loss of conceptual meaning, and over-inclusion of words. Art therapists can facilitate cognitive expression by providing activities that require sequential operations, such as printmaking, wood or cardboard sculpture, both of which are complex and structured activities, or by asking the client to draw something specific, like in the assessment house, tree, person. You're going to draw a house, you're going to draw a tree, and you're going to draw a person. If you know, you know. Symbolic. The symbolic level of the ETC emphasizes intuitive concept formulation and a realization and actualization of symbols. What are symbols? They're images with personal, not universal meaning, images in which the communicated concept becomes personal and transcends the general meaning, which reveals our values, our beliefs, and desires. Characteristics of the symbolic level include symbolic color usage, symbolic abstractions, symbolic identification, and even the symbolization of defenses. The symbolic level includes sensorial and affective input, as well as autobiographical material. Without a balance of cognitive expression, extreme symbolic expression can take the form of obscure or idiosyncratic meaning of symbols over identification with symbols, symbolic manifestations of defenses, and figure ground reversal. One easy way for your art therapist to facilitate your symbolic expression is to have you do collage. Also, you can do mask making. Multimedia also works really good here, such as puzzle pieces or little knickknacks that you can find. I also like to take photos with my small kids camera. I use it to find my own compositions in the environment and then give them personal meaning, which I can include in later collages. We have finally reached the creative level, the vehicle through which all other levels connect and interact. It emphasizes the emergent, synthesizing, and self-actualizing forces within an individual. It is not the final culminating level, as creativity can occur on any one of the ETC levels. In order for a person to reach the creative level, they have to be ready and willing to reflect. Are you? Creativity is a synthesis of the creative person, the creative environment, the creative process, and the creative product. The art therapist has control over the latter three, but you are the only one who can be that creative person. Creative expressions can lead to an integration of the aspects of the self that were once separate, a synthesis of the ego and the self. Materials that increase creative actualization are those that facilitate a dialogue between the individual and their artwork, that instigate closure and provide stimuli for gathering insight, which can include media that sit in multiple sections of the caddy. I hear you saying, but wait, why is clay in the sensory, affective, and kinesthetic levels? How's that possible? Well, that's because of media dimensions variable, or MDV, which is a way for your art therapist to classify the underlying traits of art materials. This MDV allows art therapists to manipulate these dimensions in their directives to promote creative expression, i.e., movement around the ETC. So, clay can facilitate a sensory experience if it's super wet, or it can facilitate a kinesthetic expression if you pound it and you throw it, or if either the kinesthetic or sensory experiences with the clay make you feel something. Well, yes, the MDV outlines 3 spectrums for art materials: fluid to resistive, simple to complex, structured to unstructured. The fluid to resistive dimension organizes art materials based on their inherent structural qualities. For example, watercolors are extremely fluid and hard to control, whereas a graphite pencil is quite resistive and easy to control. Fluid mediums can allow for more expression of emotions. They're also called amplifiers, whereas resistive mediums offer more containment of emotions, making them reducers. The simple to complex dimension relates to the number of steps or mental operations an art directive requires. So, an art directive with one color choice, or that simply requires you to smear paint on a canvas, is considered more simple than linoleum or intaglio printmaking, which are multi-step art processes requiring much careful thought and instruction and using particular tools. Lastly, the structured to unstructured dimension describes how much direction an art directive provides or expects. Many standardized art therapy assessments, which you might have taken, are considered to be quite structured, such as the house, tree, person assessment that I mentioned before. On the other end of the spectrum, an open studio approach in which individuals can enter the studio space and create any artwork from their own inspiration using any art materials is considered to be quite unstructured. As I said, your art therapist can adjust these dimensions, the media properties, the complexity, and the task structure to create an opportunity for you to activate the creative level of the ETC. In general, an art therapist can promote sensory, affective, and symbolic expressions by providing fluid media and simple, unstructured tasks. On the other hand, an art therapist can promote cognitive and perceptual expressions by providing resistive media and complex, structured tasks. Now, I can hear you ask, moving around, why can't I just stay on one level? I like it here. I'm here to tell you that it's okay if you stay on one level for a bit. or if you want to move around. It all depends on the person and their current needs and abilities. We won't just move you around or let you stay in one place because you like it or because it's comfortable, but only if it benefits the client's therapeutic goals. Only then would the art therapist try to facilitate a connection or disconnection. A connection occurs when a person is able to experience two or more levels in an art-making experience, where information about the experience moves fluidly between the levels in a way that aids the client's goals. Generally, art material choice can either amplify or reduce connections. The more fluid the medium, the more it amplifies a connection, and the more resistive a medium, the more it reduces a connection. Sometimes art therapists purposefully amplify connections that make you feel like you're losing control or getting too messy. They're regressing you to a lower processing level of the ETC in order to break and then rebuild your ego, to return to that pre-verbal state and access emotions and thoughts that are below the surface of consciousness. Don't worry, babe, it's all part of the process. If you are willing and open to new ways of expression, you will spin the caddy around to another section and take materials from that section. Anytime you spin the caddy around, you are experiencing creativity. However, your art therapist may discern that you are experiencing a disconnection, or that a disconnection is currently more useful to you than a connection. A disconnection is a lack of interaction between two levels. It's those variations that I was telling you about before, which can be indicators of dysregulation or dysfunction, resistance or defensiveness. With my ETC caddy, experiencing a disconnect means that you are only using materials from one section. You are not spinning it around, and your expressions have characteristics of the variations that I mentioned before. When art therapists see that a new client is already experiencing a disconnection, in order to provide a safe environment in which a therapeutic relationship can develop, the art therapist may allow the client to make defensive art, which means staying in that disconnection. So, this brings me to the end of the video. I hope this has clarified some things for you in your art therapy experiences, and I hope that you feel like clay makes you crazy and that you'll never, ever, ever, ever again draw a stick figure. Cheers!